Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 87 of Open House. I am so happy to be here because I definitely wasn't here last week. I was underneath a lot of snow. Sorry about the last minute cancel on you guys. That was my fault. Well, I guess it wasn't my fault. It's just Birmingham, Alabama is terrible with snow. So we couldn't do it last week, but we're here this week with Aleya's first time on Open House. Well, not your first time. You were in there during the Halloween live stream for a little bit, and
I was.
that was a lot of fun. Uh,
That
if
was fun.
if anybody missed that live stream, y'all need to go back to the VODs to watch that because I dressed up like a wizard and it was the
Yes.
best day of work I've ever had. I just want to, it was so much fun. But this is Aleya's first time being able to do an open house for the full way through. And if you guys don't remember or know who Aleya is, she is one of our trusted advisors with Nucamp. She's amazing at what she does. She's helped countless people get into the program and guide them through from start to finish and nurturing them throughout that process and really being able to provide a genuine consulting perspective with people because everybody's trying to get in tech a little bit differently. But anyway, I'm really speaking over. Like, Aleya, thanks for coming by. It's awesome to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. And if you don't know what Open House is, if this is your first time watching it, we're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of those different platforms. If you type into the chat, we're here to specifically answer questions. Open House is a little bit different than something like campfires that we do, which is more interview style. This is way more laid back, where we're just here to kick back for about an hour, talk about tech, boot camps, really a lot of different topics. The chat dictates a lot of where this pacing goes. And so, because of that, I just want to go ahead and just open this up for a quick little fun discussion, as I usually do in these open houses now. I'm just going to keep this up on screen because it's the first one of the year. What is your 2025 New Year's tech resolutions? Answer in the chat. I want to hear it. Do you have any, Aleya?
I would love to get more familiar with just tech in general. I think coding's really cool. I want to know a little bit more about the different languages that are used, and I just think it'd be cool to be aware of what the different ones do.
Yeah.
Because I am only really familiar with like HTML, CSS, Bootstrap. I did a little bit of Python work in college, but definitely not to a level where I'd consider myself proficient by any means.
Why did you have to do that in college? Like, what sparked that?
So I didn't have to do it. I chose to do it. It was like
Okay.
an elective, and I did it my second semester of my senior year, which was probably not the best time to do it because I felt like that was supposed to be my most relaxing semester. And it wasn't with that because it's hard work. And it was actually myself and then mostly grad students. So it was hard work, but I kind of liked the challenge of that. Like it was cool and it was something I had never done before because my background wasn't in tech at all. So I thought, last semester, why not give something new a shot? And it was very interesting. So
Yeah.
I thought it was cool to have a little bit of experience in that area.
Was that your first exposure to a coding language? Was that one?
Yeah, it was.
It's a good one, though.
So yeah, it is a good one because I feel like it's the most used language, but it was also a little scary being thrown into that when I didn't have any background experience. Like now I feel like I would have a little more of an understanding going into it because I, took our web development fundamentals bootcamp and I know a little bit of like the basics. So I feel like that would have prepped me a little more, but it was a good experience overall, regardless.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe you need to circle back to the backend boot camp and give another crack at Python again.
I was gonna say I always like if I'm like, oh, should I do it? Backend's kind of the one I feel like would be cool to go into.
I say it on every open house. I'm very biased towards the backend boot camp. I love that boot camp because transferable skills, right? I mean, backend is so important right now because of AI and data and so much that you can do with that. And if you get proficient at backend, even though it's a little bit on surface level, maybe more like harder to digest a bit more, like because it's not front end. Front end is everything you visually see, colors, fonts on screen, like all of the designs, all of that. So when you hit run or go on your computer, it's going to pop up with pretty colors, or it's going to look like trash, right?
Yeah.
It's one or the other. And with backend, if you hit go or run on your lines of code, nothing's popping up if it doesn't work,
Yeah. Right.
it's very frustrating. But if you get proficient at that, you can go cybersecurity, back to front end, do full stack, just stay within back end because there's so much that falls under that umbrella. Yeah, I'm there with you. I did coding a little bit more years and years ago,
Hmm.
but I always kind of told myself if I got back into this, like if I really like full sent it and just hunkered down for 6 months or something like that, I think I would be 20 times a better developer now than I was
Mm.
years ago, just because of that little exposure back in the day. So, yeah. So I guess for you, anyway, bringing this all the way back to the question that we have right there, that's your resolution is just doing a little bit more coding and getting more exposure to maybe some languages
Yeah.
you haven't done before. I love that. Same here, but maybe the opposite in some way, getting back into languages that I used to do,
Mm.
that I haven't touched in a while, right? I mean, build some more projects. I think a lot of people are guilty of not building their own personal projects a bit more than they'd
Yeah.
like to.
Getting
So
that refresher in.
yeah, yeah. So I'm probably gonna do that. I'm just wondering, where's everybody in chat? There's like no one here right now. Like, what's happening? Like, I'm cool with kicking back and
Just
talking to
us.
you for now. Yeah. Hey, listen, we're we're just gonna chill and do that. But if y'all have any questions, this is the time to ask. Right? I mean, we're creeping up on the coincidentally the web development fundamentals cutoff day for that's going to start up this upcoming Monday. But there's a thing that we can do with that. We had a Cyber Monday coupon from a few months ago, and it's still 25% off the first installment, and that's still valid right now. If you want to get that, schedule a call with us right there. We'll send it your way. I'll put it on screen at some point too, but that's going to offset any of the early bird discount that was missed. That's going to offset any of our baseline coupons that we have as well, and do a little bit more for you. So definitely take advantage of that while you can. I'm going a million miles per hour. It's funny. Before we started, I said to Aleya, I'm like, I'm gonna go get an energy drink. I'm sleepy. I don't. I'm
Yeah.
so tired. And then now I'm back, just completely different.
Now it's
But
hitting.
now it's hitting the bloodstream a bit more. Yeah, for sure. Well, ask away in the chat once again. I want to talk to some people, see what's going on in their lives. I want to hear these answers too. But at the same time, oh, there's Marissa. I'm here. What would you say is the highest in demand in tech right now? Well, that's a good question. There's actually a lot more in demand than I think people give credit for. Really, there's a lot of back end positions in particular. Aleya, do you want to take any of those roles? Are you familiar with them at all, or do you want me to kind of go through a couple of them first?
No, you got it.
Yeah, I got it. Okay, cool. So we were talking a little bit more about back end and how that's transferable, right? AI, huge right now. Anything that's working with data, huge right now. Cybersecurity inherently is going to follow shortly behind that, because if you're seeing everything that's happening with AI, how important data is, and there's never been a more important time in human history right now where data is more important. It's never happened before. So because of that, and you have to protect all of that, cybersecurity is shortly behind that too. So cloud is very important, because that's a huge expense for companies, is how to store said data. Cloud cuts down on that expense drastically. And compared to a lot of things out there, cloud is kind of relatively new-ish. I mean, I think it came out like 2008, 9, like where it conceptually started coming out a bit more, but it didn't hit full swing until the past like 10 years or so. And so there's a lot of money to be made in just like things that float within the back end realm. So that's why I'm really biased towards that particular direction.
I was gonna say too, really quick,
Mhm.
a lot of people, when I'm talking to them, will be like, "Well, AI is up and coming. Does that mean we're not gonna be getting any jobs?" And I'm like, honestly, I think it's the opposite. I think
Yeah.
because AI is so new, there's still so much being developed. So I feel like we do need people there to check up, like you said, on what's being done. Like, we're making sure that the correct information is going through, the correct data is going through. So I don't think it necessarily is like, "Oh, all our jobs are gone because AI is taking over." I think it's more of a collaboration now working with the AI, but I still think people are very important throughout the industry. So that's something to note as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you saw this, but in our Discord community, our general chat, I think it was our general chat, Ludo, a couple weeks ago, was terrorizing some students in there and asking a question. I don't know if you saw this. It was really, really funny. I think there was like a gift card on the line if you could answer a certain question.
Oh, I
And
didn't see that.
yeah, it's really funny. I would have to scroll up to find it. I'm not gonna do that just in case it's breaching some privacy or something like that. So, but the question was essentially, um, what's wrong with this picture? Why can AI not figure out this particular thing? And
Hmm.
it was a simple pattern that it was a couple grids, some dots that when they interpassed, it created more blocks. It was something along those lines. Very easy to distinguish from a small grid getting slightly bigger with every example. And you can find that correlation. But when you asked AI, it was coming back with tons of wacky designs and filling out the grid, and it just couldn't figure it out. And so the question essentially was, why can't AI figure this out? And it was in a long X thread that had released earlier that day. I had private messaged Ludo. I was like, I kind of want to get in on this. Is it something to do with this? And he was like, you're definitely on the right track. But it was funny to see all of the students in there actually using Chat GPT and AI to figure out the answer to that question, which is like kind of doubling down on why
Yeah.
it didn't work in the first place, right?
Yeah.
And there's just going to be certain patterns and recognitions that AI just can't see that the human eye can distinguish very, very quickly. And we're just so far away from that becoming more and more of it just completely taking away. So yeah, I thought I'd mention that real fast. And the cool thing is the person who won it actually, I believe they did get a gift card. And I just like that we have those little incentives in our general chat every once in a while. Perks of
Yeah.
joining Nucamp, do it. Anyway,
Yeah.
we got another one here. How can project management and coding work together to be a good candidate or to be a good candidate in a good position? Um, I see a pretty easy distinguishment here. So I'll kind of like lean into this and like Alea, you can tee this off too if you want to. But project management, you have to have amazing communication and amazing organization skills. That translates over into coding so fast. Like if you're already proficient at that, you can carry over those skills. Have you ever worked with a project manager or talked to any of them on the phone, like as an advisor before, Alea?
Um, I'm sure I have at some point.
I've talked to quite a few that have transitioned, um, and the study material for getting a lot of those certifications as well. It's more so in line academically, I want to say, with the same train of thought. Um, but I guess you're asking how can project management and coding work together. So I'm a little confused on that. Are you someone who works in project management who wants to transition into coding, or is this more so a question of like how can I merge the two? I want to be able to give you a better
Yeah.
answer on that, but just a little bit more context would go a super far way, I think, with both of us. Um, but keep asking those questions. I want to be able to answer that for you better. Let's see here. I'm gonna go ahead and prompt some more questions on screen. Oh, there's Ludo. Sup, team? What would you recommend? Learning to code or becoming a cybersecurity expert? Okay, so I feel like this is a good question for you, Alea, because if you could maybe hit the reset button and pursue a different thing, what would you want to do?
Personally, I would do coding. I think cybersecurity is getting really big right now and it is really cool. But I feel like, in my personal opinion, there'd be an easier transition to start with coding and then move into cybersecurity because I feel like you have that foundational base a little bit better. And then it would, like, even if you decided to go into cybersecurity, you could transfer over. Whereas I think for me, it'd be harder to go the other direction if I wanted to switch. So I think coding's really cool. I think it's so useful in different ways. I think cybersecurity is also very interesting, and I think it's cool because it kind of supports that coding side of things. But I would probably learn to code first.
Got it. Ludo, thanks for joining. I love the question. I would probably say, well, for me, it's a little bit different, I guess. I guess your question is mainly for people who have never done anything before. It's kind of a case by case basis on how you learn, right? If you're a person who learns by doing, then coding, I think, is a lot better. Building something, you're not really working with your hands, but it kind of feels like you are to a certain extent because you're making something come to life digitally. Um, Cybersecurity is a bit more streamlined on the education process, getting more certifications, knowing what role you want to play on, like what team, red team, blue team, purple team later on, finding that groove, learning those concepts. I feel like even though there's a left brain, right brain type of thing with both of these, you can merge both of them. But I think that cybersecurity is for people who want to just take a different approach to the education process. So if you find that you do better on test taking, getting those certifications, and sitting down and doing that, maybe cybersecurity would be a better route. But if you like to build things and be like, I want to take this a step further and go down a little bit more of a rabbit hole and stay more stimulated, learning to code would be good. However you learn to code, I don't think it really matters too much because everybody always asks me, probably you too, Aleya, like, where should I get started with coding? Right? Like, should I do this language or that language? I hear a lot of people say, I want to learn HTML and CSS and then jump straight into Python and SQL. I'm like, that's not super duper efficient, like
Yeah.
let's not do that. Right. And so there are some ways to do that, but get a little taste of everything, see what clicks for you the most, explore that option, and then expand your palette from there. I really went full throttle with that question, Ludo. Hopefully, you were in here earlier when I was telling more people about how you were in the general chat with that AI question. That was a lot of fun. We got to do more of those. So you're talking about project management and coding merging the two. Well, with project management, you're working a lot with data. So I would say getting more into automating that data, manipulating it in real time, and then cutting expenses with project management. You're looking over a lot of that. There's a lot of analytics that goes into it too. So if you do that, I would have a strong basis on the functionality within backend, and then explore more into the design centric things with front end later on. Krista, so awesome to see you. I'm doing good. How are you doing, Aleya?
I am doing great. It's Good Friday.
A good Friday. Where is Toast? Toast is
Good question.
that's why we're all really here.
That's what people actually
Okay.
want to know.
It's been a while. I don't think I brought her in here on the last one because I did it with Ludo, and I think Ludo had just gotten a little kitty too. I didn't know if he was going to show her off. I didn't want to steal that thunder with Toast. But she's away right now. She's been a little bit more loud. Toast is my cat, by the way, a little kitten. She comes on these open houses every once in a while, and she's been getting a little loud and rambunctious. So I don't really want her in here. So I am transitioning over to AI, but still think coding base is really important. How are you doing that, Krista? Like, how do you come to that realization where you're like, okay, I have this basis, and now I want to get into AI. Like, what are some of the proactive steps that you're taking in there? I'm kind of curious to find out. So, and keep these questions coming. I love them. Chris is saying my cat's a teenager now. I know. It puts it in perspective for me having kids one day. I'm just, gosh, pulling at the heartstrings. Um, well, let's do this. I saw something that was pretty interesting not too long ago. I might temporarily dox myself here, but I was on social media, and maybe some people in here already saw this. How do I find the share screen button? Here it is. Okay. I'm going to share my screen, and I want to preface something here. I don't want to get into the weeds too much about this particular person, but the message that he had was very interesting. I'm glad someone saw it, which is Elon Musk. He had written this a couple days ago. If you're a hardcore software engineer and want to build the everything app, please join us by sending your best work to code@x.com. And here's the real kicker, okay, guys? We don't care where you went to school or even whether you went to school or what big name company you worked at. Just show us your code. I wanted to let that breathe for a second, because here's a tech billionaire CEO who just does not care where you went to school or if you went to school. He just wants to see your skills. And I think if you spend any amount of time on Reddit or social media, you'll just hear a lot of people wanting to gatekeep the tech industry, saying you need to go to college for 4 years or get a master's in computer science and then go do all these things, rah, 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 right? And I get it. Don't get me wrong, guys. I get why people do that. But it's just not where we're going. Okay. People just want to see skills, and if you know what you're doing right now. And I just wanted to share that to give a little bit more, I guess, motivation to people who are thinking about becoming a developer, or aspiring to become one, that there are still opportunities, even with big tech companies out there like X or Twitter or whatever you want to call it, that you can stand out regardless of your background. And how you get those skills is really determined by a lot of different things. So you have 3 different options: self-taught, boot camp, college. It's really the only 3. Anything else out there, I don't know what that option would be. Most people can't do self-taught. Actually, over half of our alumni and students that come through here have tried doing self-taught, and they fail at it. I tried doing self-taught. I failed at it. I just didn't have any structure. Okay, so that's a con. A pro is the opposite, right? Maybe you can do it a little bit quicker too. Another thing is college, right? Tons of time, tons of money, maybe a little bit more recognition for the degree, but that's how much is going to change within that 4-year period. How much of your life is going to change, not just with tech, but your life. Things can happen in a 4-year time frame. And then the boot camp, right? I think the boot camp's a happy median, okay? And a lot of people won't. I mean, it's kind of hard for me not to say it's not, right? I mean, I'm here having a live stream for a coding boot camp, but being a little bit taking the bias out of it, you'll be able to identify your groove better than if you were to just get started by yourself and just going out into the ocean and probably drowning because it's just so vast, right? It's a structured learning environment. There are people in your corner, and generally speaking, there's going to be career services and a lifeline support towards the end of that. Out of those 3 options, did I miss anything that maybe you had a take on, or a hot take maybe too? With that, Aleya, I know I'm kind of going
No,
a million miles per hour.
I feel like you hit the exact points of self-taught. If you can work in that environment, great, but I feel like it's very difficult for most people, especially because these aren't super simple, topics, and knowing, okay, where do I go from here? What system do I use now? That can be difficult by yourself without having prior experience. And then the degree, I feel like some people are just I am now wanting to start, I have no desire to go to college, whatever it may be. Or like you said, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of longer of a process. And there are people that will just do it in boot camps where you do get that kind of middle where like you're getting the accountability and structure of it, but you're also able to work on like side things and help adding things to portfolios and whatnot. Um, and that, like he showed in the tweet, like that's really what people are looking for when they're hiring, is to see what you can do. It doesn't matter how you got to the point of what you can do, but showing, okay, I've built this website or I've done this in the background. That is the most important thing, because someone could have no experience and they just pick it up in one day. And if they can do it, they can do it. So obviously it's whichever works best for each person. But I think specifically at Nucamp too, the way that we have it is, you have your weekly meetings with the instructor. And then during the week, you get that opportunity to do things a little bit by yourself, following along with things, doing different exercises. So you have that. It's not like every single day with an instructor in a class. You have that time to kind of explore, see how you want to do stuff, and then go ask questions, get some help, and work on those kind of bigger workshop projects. So I think the layout of it is just really helpful. I took the web development fundamentals bootcamp. I mentioned that earlier, and I'm someone that is not super technical. So I was like, I don't know how well I'm going to do in this. And I found it to be really fun, which I didn't expect. And I also did really well in the course itself, which was, both of those things were a shock to me. But I was like, whoa, this is cool. This is not what I expected it to be, which was really different than the college class that I took that I mentioned, which was a lot more overwhelming, to be
Yeah, it was
honest.
probably overwhelming because there's a lot of like, here's material, just do it. Not really much support along the way.
Yeah,
And you probably
yeah.
had a ton of questions going through it too.
So many. I was like, what is going on here?
That was the
Whereas
most
which is
authentic
kind of,
response I've ever seen you have. Oh, so many. That was funny.
no, it was so stressful, which is why I was kind of like, I don't know how I'll do in this web development fundamentals course, but I really liked it. And it was really cool, like, because you were saying earlier too, even with the like cybersecurity versus coding, seeing like your progress. I would like press a button and then everything would come to life. And I'm like, whoa, I just built this website. That's crazy.
Yeah.
To even see just the basics of it. That was really cool for me to be like, whoa, I put this together. And I went and I was like showing my family, I'm like, look at the website I just created. And they're like, whoa. I was like, I can do it.
Yeah, and then you start to, it's funny because by the end of the web development fundamentals, seeing Bootstrap and how that works, how often do you go to a website now and go, I know how they did that? You know?
So much more than I
Yeah.
ever thought it would.
Yep. Yep.
I'm like, oh, this is what they did to put the color in here
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
change this background and
This was the
click the
nav,
button or whatever.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the
Act like I'm an expert.
right. Right.
I'm just scratching the surface.
I love it. I love it. And that's the biggest thing is, the web development fundamentals, once again, coming right up on Monday. If you want to give it a shot, we have a 25% off the first installment. So use that thing up there to get more info. But that's the cool thing about the fundamentals course, is because it's only 4 weeks long. It's not that long, and it's extremely affordable comparatively speaking, especially to tons of other boot camps out there. You're not, setting pillars on, sand, right? You have a good solid foundation. And that leads directly more into the intermediate to advanced stuff. And so, also as a consumer, let's just, take like our views out of this for a second and like put ourselves in the shoes of a consumer. You can really think to yourself, I can kind of go on a trial run with this, right? It's only 4 weeks.
100%.
HTML, CSS, Bootstrap. It's relatively easy to get those answers if you fall into some problems. I mean, obviously, you're going to have your instructor and tons of help through Nucamp, but even outside of that too, it's relatively easy to find those answers. And that's not going to change anywhere you go. So if you really like Nucamp, then to go into the full stack or front end bootcamp from that point, right? Let's say worst case scenario though, maybe you didn't like it that much. Okay. Well, at least now you know how to do HTML, CSS, Bootstrap. It's so much more in such a short period of time before that, right? Like, I mean, going into anything else. So I want to back this up into Krista's in the chat saying, she had mentioned, so I'm transitioning over to AI. And I wanted to prompt her the question of like, how do you go from coding to AI and the mindset there? So she's sharing this. I've got a Microsoft cert for free for Azure AI, and sorry, my screen just started bugging out. Let's see. And it really just started, and it really for me just started down that road. So I have added another cert, and now I'm working on AI projects in the real world with a mentor friend. Well, that's great. So that mentor friend, being able to collaborate with them is a huge step. I'm finding myself in tutorial hell. I'll just say HE double hockey stick already through. Already though, since I see new tutorials, I want to take, but I still have a few to finish. I'm sorry, y'all. It's getting hard for me to read this because for whatever reason, my chat minimized. Like it's like this big on my screen right now. I can't see it. Let's see. Or you go to the website and go like, oh, this website is crap. And then, yeah, that's for the HTML and CSS stuff talk. Well, that's great, Krista. I know I kind of butchered a lot of that just now, but thank you for sharing that with us. And I'm really interested to see where that takes you. So this mentor that you have, how did you find them and how did you connect with them enough to be able to work together on some things? I feel like this is one of the biggest things people miss in the tech industry is not finding someone who knows things more than themselves, right? So how did that connection happen for you? All right, so we're over the halfway point already. It's gone super fast.
It has.
Yeah, blow up the chat. I want to see some more things in there. I want to hear more about some ambitions. I guess I'll prompt you guys a question. Let's see. If you could build any app or website, what would it be? I'm kind of curious on that. When you were going through the web development fundamentals, you had mentioned, hey, fam, I just built this website. Check it out. What did you build while you were in there?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Okay. We built like a coffee shop website. There was a couple different ones, but that was kind of the like final project we did. It wasn't, I don't think I'd build a coffee shop one per se, because I don't have plans to start a coffee shop, but it was really cool and I liked the like aesthetic of the colors. I wonder if I could find it. I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere on my laptop saved, but I don't know if it's good enough to share.
No, you're fine. You're good. If you could build like any website for someone, like is there a local business or anything like that you would want to take a crack at?
So one of my best friends is really eager on starting a swimwear line and she really wants to do that. And one of my other friends, she did graphic design and so she's really good at that type of stuff, but she doesn't know the coding aspect of it. So I feel like if I were to do something right now and be like, let me get into that, it'd probably be working with my graphic design friend to build my other friend a website for her swimwear.
Maybe that could be the 2025 resolution there.
Maybe it is because all of us are like the graphic design one's like, I want to, get more in my portfolio. And the other one's like, I want to start building this brand and creating the company. And I want to do a little more with coding. So maybe we all put our heads together and start this business.
Yeah. So me and Xandra is one of the other advisors and trustees here, essentially at Nucamp, and we do a lot of open houses together. We try and meet on Thursdays around like 4 o'clock our time. Sometimes that ranges a little later, a little earlier, but we try and aim for that. You should join in on that. We are actually thinking about opening that up for a lot of people at Nucamp, just doing a study group where anyone can join. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but if anybody's watching this and they're thinking, well, maybe I can just try and join a Discord or something, let us know. We would love to have you in there. If I could build any app or website, what would it be right now for me? So our CEO, our president, everything, Ludo, he is really amazing at developing things. He built essentially a CRM for us, for our meetings, for being able to notate things to help certain people who need our help. I would love to learn how to do that myself too, kind of in the same type of scale that he's done, with some analytics in there. I find that kind of stuff very interesting. Data visualization has always been very interesting to me. Not something I've ever really done before, which is funny because SQL is one of my favorite coding languages. But yeah, I would probably build something along those lines. Going back to the question of how did Krista find this mentor that she was mentioning? She said through the tech Tinder, LinkedIn. I've never heard it as tech Tinder. That's
Me
funny.
neither.
Maybe that's the project that you need to build.
Yeah.
Ludo is a magician. Well, he is French. So I don't know what that means, but my personal project is a home dashboard where you can manage all family calendars, shopping lists, bills, everything in one place kind of app.
Ooh,
I love that. I love that.
that's awesome.
So a home dashboard, personal project, is there a way? You said family calendars. Is there a way that you can open that up to other family members' calendars, like within one household? Because I feel like that would be really cool. I don't really hear many apps where it's like maybe someone runs out of milk and they're just like, let me get on this app and add milk to the family shopping list, right?
So you can do that in Notes, I believe, where you can have like a shared note with people where you
Mhm.
can see when they add stuff. But this sounds cooler because it's like everything, like shopping list, bills, like all in one place. I feel like that makes it more appealing. I feel like a lot of people would be interested in that if you
Yeah,
do
that sounds
develop
kinda
it.
cool. Sounds kinda cool, I like that because you know how, like, Samsung and some of those other appliances have, like, a freaking touch screen on refrigerators and things like
Yes,
that? Like,
yes.
that type of idea seems really cool because imagine you're going in and out and then boom, you hit it. They probably have
Yeah,
already done that. They probably
yeah,
already done that, but it sounds cool.
yeah, it does
Um,
sound cool.
Chris is saying, "Totally, the Google API is amazing and makes that all possible." Google, you know? What what are you gonna do with them? They're already one step ahead.
They've already done everything.
Yeah, yeah. I love that, when I first fun story here, when I first started being an advisor here, one of my first meetings I had with someone, they wanted to become the CEO of Google within about 6 months of going through our boot camp, and, they had
Oh,
never written any type of code before, and, that person, still went through our boot camp, and I hate to say it, they're not the CEO of Google right now, but I will give credit where credit is due. They followed up with me and they built some really cool stuff. Um, and I would like to attribute a lot of their success to our instructors who more than likely reeled them in on realistic building blocks,
yeah.
right? And goals. So Chris said, did they make it? No, no, no. I don't know if you're talking about the Google CEO thing, but no, I don't think they
They
made
made
it.
it somewhere.
No, they're doing great stuff. At least it's been months since I've heard from them, but I got to give credit to our instructors for that because I feel like that's the rock that person needed. And
That ambition's great too,
how was your
because
instructor while
you
you were
know they're
going
gonna
through
make
it?
it somewhere. My instructor was awesome. I was pestering him with questions, and he was great because I was like, this is almost correct. What can I do to make it all the way? Because it would just annoy me if it wasn't. And I would put my code through the website that he had given us that would kind of let you know which parts were wrong.
Hmm.
But if I still couldn't figure it out, I would be like, "Can you look over this?" like 100 times. He was great about getting back to me and not getting annoyed that I was like asking a million questions. So
So
I
while
really
you
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. So while you were going through it, you felt super comfortable in being able to reach out to your instructor and everything too, right?
Yeah, which is really important to me because I'm someone where if I don't feel comfortable asking them, I just won't, and I'll get really nervous, and then obviously my quality of work won't be as good because I think asking questions is important and the only way you learn. So he was super nice and super helpful. which made me feel better about then asking him things, which I think in turn made me do better in the course than if I had a really uninviting instructor that didn't want to see me succeed. Then I would have probably not asked those questions and not done as well. So I had a great time with my instructor.
Yeah, just pushed you in ways that were not, I guess, making you feel uncomfortable to go back for more questions. I think that's really important. And so, like, when you are going through that entire 4-week program, did you collaborate with any students? Did you like talk to any more, or was it mainly just your instructor? Like, I know some people might lone wolf certain things, some people might do group projects. Where were you in that?
So I did both. He allowed us to do a group project together. We submitted it individually, but he was like, it's fine if it's the exact same because you guys are doing it together.
Mhm.
So I did one. It was a partner one. I think, yeah, I think there was one partner one that we had done, which was really cool because that was kind of the transitioning step of kind of putting all of it together, like the HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap. So it was nice to kind of run ideas by another person, and we were collaborating and we like went over everything together. But he did allow you to also work individually if you didn't want to do that. I just thought it would be cool to get that exposure and see if there were things she could teach me or vice versa, like if one of us didn't know something. And then I'm trying to remember if it was 1 week or 2 of the weeks that we collaborated. I think it was just one
Okay.
because it was only 4 weeks. And then yeah, I think that might have been week 3. But yeah, it was exciting for me because I like working with people and seeing what I can learn from them. And so I felt like that helped a little bit when I going into week 4 when I was doing it all myself, and that was kind of the like final put everything together because I feel like there were things that maybe I would have been confused on that we collaborated on and then figured out. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, and Krista's even popcorning off of that, saying the instructors are amazing. They're there to make you feel better, but but you do have to ask for the help, right? I mean, every instructor I had would help me above and beyond even the class scope to make me better. Yeah, I mean, that's anywhere you go though, right? I mean, communication is going to be key. Like if you're running into a problem on a Monday or Tuesday of a week and then you're waiting till Saturday or Sunday to get it resolved, that's your fault, homie. You know, like you gotta tighten up for something like that. That does kind of tee me up for a question that I have for you again, Aleya. What's the most helpful coding tip you've gotten? So, like when you were going through that, was there one thing that was just a light bulb moment for you where it just made a lot of other things click? Like maybe from a different student, from that instructor when you were reaching out, anything like that?
I think honestly that website he gave us, as well as there was a few different exercises where you could go in and it would tell you like, okay, make this box green or like take away the words here, things like that. I think for me it was just practice. Um, Again, it was the early stages of coding, so I'm sure I would learn
Right.
more going down the line. But I think just if there was something that I didn't understand and then I, had that question answered, my instructor was like, just go back and do exercises of the same thing over and over again because they'll have different things they want you to do. So you're not like, oh, turn it green every time. Like it would switch up a little bit
Mm,
to just make sure you're getting that stuff. That was in the CSS portion a little bit more. That was a little bit harder for me to grasp onto than the HTML at first. But then I just continued to do a little bit of that extra practice, which I think is great. Again, that Nucamp had those where it was like, okay, this isn't a graded section, but you can do as many exercises as you want to make sure that you're comfortable in this section and doing what the tasks are asking you to do.
So kind of what I'm hearing from you is the biggest tip was more of a principle, which was repetition, right? And then not just repetition in the same way over and over again. I guess it is the definition of repetition, but like slightly tweaking it so that
Yeah.
way along the way you can start to see those patterns and you get comfortable of if you come across that situation again, you know exactly what to do, what to research, the syntax and everything like that, huh?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, this is pretty obvious, but the attention to detail, because you can type the smallest little thing and it will just mess up the whole code. Like you can put a period somewhere or an extra space by accident. Those are really where most of the mistakes are going to come, because if you're like, oh, well, the screen looks a lot different than I thought it would be. A lot of the times it's just something so small, but
Yep.
that's very important to recognize. And I think it's cool to see, though, because in the beginning you're like, this is just a bunch of random numbers and letters and words, and what does any of this mean? But as you go through it slowly, I would just type things in naturally and be like, oh, this is going to change the color. And then I was like, hold on, how did I even know that? Like, it just would start to like click in your head, and you're like, okay, this is what's new that I'm learning. But the old stuff, going over it each week and continuing to keep up the HTML, for example, and then going into the CSS. By the time I'd got to Bootstrap, I felt a lot more comfortable with the HTML, and I was like, okay, I can type this in and I know what's going to happen. I know how to like add this button if I want to do it, whatever that may be. So I think just like also not stressing yourself out, because I was like, how am I ever going to learn this? Like, none of this will make sense. And slowly you'll just start to catch on. Like, I was just like, okay, I know how to make whatever I needed to happen,
Yeah.
because you just see it a lot, and things are all intertwined and connected. So that ends up being helpful.
Yeah. And Krista's saying, bang head on desk, add semicolon, rejoice. Right. It's funny that you mentioned that, because as soon as you sent that, Krista, I was thinking to myself, with you in particular, Aleya, um, how much different your perspectives changed. You had mentioned this earlier, going through Python in college for a little bit, and then going into HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap, and you probably went, wow, this is so much better. This is so much more fun.
So
This is
much
so
better.
much, because like I guarantee you probably put an extra space at some point in Python, or you wrote something just slightly wrong, where maybe in a different coding language that wouldn't have mattered. So yeah, I would say, let me get this back on screen for the most helpful coding tip you've gotten. This is going to make me sound like a psychopath, but I promise, this is from a book called The Pragmatic Programmer. I think that's what it's called. It released a long time ago. It's used in universities a lot. But it's the having yourself a rubber ducky to talk to. Now, it doesn't actually have to be a rubber duck. It could be anything. But I have this guy right here for that, Bowser Jr. And like you
Oh,
would just have him on your desk or whatever, a rubber duck, any type of inanimate object, and you talk to it like line by line for the code to fully understand. So that way, if you're running into some issues, but you're talking about it out loud, maybe with someone ideally, right? But if you don't have that someone, you have Bowser Jr., you need to talk to him and try and get these problems
yeah,
solved.
because
But
when
that's a
you're
very common
explaining
thing.
it, yeah, if you're explaining it, then you can hear it out loud and then identify, maybe you recognize the issue yourself. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
right.
I like that.
So that's called the rubber ducky. That's the most helpful tip I've gotten. Which it's funny. There are a lot of other tips like certain IntelliSense and extensions that you can use with Visual Studio Code that makes life easier. Right, those are nice additions. But like for actual tips and just being more into a mindset, I like that we both kind of naturally went there. Where you said switching up repetition in slightly different ways is going to help you a lot more for understanding it, because then eventually it's going to click. For me, it's like expressing that frustration outwardly, breaking it down. Yeah, I like to maybe sometimes think, what if I had to explain this to like my niece who's 5 or 6 years old at this point? How would I explain this problem to them? Right. Once I've gone through that with several different problems, it makes me either look at them a little bit easier, or I solve those problems immediately because of that. Um, Krista says there really is a light bulb moment. I tried to explain it to someone the other day, Aleya.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what it is. That like it's the light bulb thing. Like eventually, like something happens and it just kind of clicks, and you're like, oh wait, I do understand it, even though a little bit ago I was so stressed that I never would get it. I think that's honestly one of the most exciting parts, when you suddenly get it and you suddenly have done something or built something. I think that is super rewarding and makes it really exciting and motivating.
yeah, for sure. Guys, we're in the last 10 minutes of this open house, and I just need to see some more energy in the chat. I just need to see some more people talking and asking some questions, or at least opening this up for discussion, because we're here to help. Aleya and I are still advisors at the end of the day for Nucamp. We want to um, be able to shepherd you in the right direction and towards the tech industry. That's the main goal, right? So if you have any questions or concerns, or how to get started, or maybe you're already started, maybe you're stuck, how can you get unstuck? Maybe you're post graduation with something, you're trying to look for a job, maybe you're seeing some frustrations. We've heard it all. Let us help you. So ask some things in the chat. If you are watching this in the future and you've gotten this far, good job. I mean, that's awesome. But also scan that QR code in case you have questions. I'm going to look in my captions here because I had a couple more questions. Let's do this one towards the end. What would make a boot camp stand out to you the most as a best choice? Aleya, for you as a consumer, let's try and take some bias out of this, because we do work for the world's best
Yeah.
boot camp in the world. Like, I mean, it's just amazing, right? But if you had to extract all of that from you, what would you look at for a boot camp that would work for you?
I think knowing that there is support there, but also that I have, this sounds like I'm really again going towards Nucamp, because they do have that, and I think it's really helpful. But knowing that there is support, but I'm also able to do things on my own and, kind of follow along and then go do external work myself and practice. I think that's something that's important. I really do need the support there, but also I learn by doing. So like following along things. And I think for me, that's why I really appreciated Nucamp, because I would go, like, a lot of them are, you'll follow along the videos and you're doing the exercises, and I would put it in like half speed, or I would rewind it 10 times and make sure I'm doing it correctly. Whereas I feel like instructors, of course, they're there to help you, but if you're doing every single exercise with them, they got to keep moving, right? They can't be like, oh, one person's stuck 10 minutes behind, whatever. But I felt like I could really go at my own pace with these videos that I could follow along. And then if I got stuck, there's people to reach out to. There's times that you can ask the instructors, whether it's during the workshops or office hours, or just shooting them a message over Discord. But I actually really liked that it was follow it along in a video, because I could make sure, okay, I'm doing the correct thing, and I can rewind it if I felt like I did something wrong or I missed something. So I really liked the video style of things, and I think that's something that I would look for in future boot camps in general.
Gotcha. So I guess like the flexibility of being able to learn when you want to learn, but then
Yeah.
also taking and extracting that information from said boot camp. Uh, Maybe going down the rabbit hole a little bit, not too far, but a little bit off the beaten path, and then coming back to
Yeah.
someone who knows some things about that and going, "Hey, I read about this, or I saw this, and do you know anything about it?" And getting
Yeah.
some good feedback from it. That's one thing I do like about these instructors here too, is that they do know their stuff outside of Nucamp as well. So if you do ask people a question, and let's say it's a coding language we don't even teach, they're probably going to be aware about it though, and they're going to give you some context as to why that language may or may not be suited for a certain project or tool or what have you.
Yeah,
Um,
I did have people in my class that were working on external projects, and they would ask our instructor all the time for his like advice and input, and he'd go separately chat with them. So yeah, they are very helpful, even if it's not a project that you're directly working on for the bootcamp itself. Like, they want everybody to um, just learn coding in general, so they're very helpful in that sense.
Something you said that was really subtle but really wise too was that the instructor would talk to those people who are doing external projects and then go into another chat to talk to them. I love that, because you'll have a lot of people who are beginner level where they'll hear so much lingo going on, right? That it's going to be daunting and a little bit too overstimulating and just too much. I like that instructor took those questions aside from what was being taught and said, okay, this is why. And if anybody showed more interest, then that's when they would chime in too. Like, I like
Yeah.
that. That's really smart that your instructor did that.
Yeah, and it wasn't in a sense of like, oh, I'm, hiding things. It was more of like,
Yeah.
also not taking away the time from the rest of the students when they're working on,
Using it, right?
whatever the workshop project is or that may be, because I'm sure there's some people that probably didn't care about what
Yeah.
the other person was doing. So it's like, why do they have to sit, and listen? But but he also was great because if there was something that someone asked that wasn't directly related, but it could have helped and been good to know about, he'd be like, oh, actually, yeah, let me mention this to the group, just like for overall advice in general within the industry. So it was like he was aware of things that would be useful for everyone to know versus something that was like very specific on someone's like personal project, which
Right.
was cool.
Right. For me, what I would look at, what would make a boot camp stand out to you as the best choice? Um, I mean, projects are really obvious, right? Career services afterwards too. Okay, the real answer here is probably time, right? I think a lot of people get too hung up on more of these technical answers being projects and those are important. That's why I like shotgun reaction. I mentioned that, but time is really important too because at the end of the day, you can make money, get your money back with a lot of different boot camps. You can, you know, go in there, build some projects, and that's cool. But your time, that's non-refundable. You can't get that
Right.
back, nor can you make that time up, really. So I would get into a boot camp that trims off the fat of what's really necessary to learn, and really establishing a good baseline. And then if I want to veer off, get into something more niche, then I have the ability of doing so without really breaking the budget either. Um,
Absolutely.
at
Yeah,
no
because those crazy long ones are going to charge you more, and then you might as well just go get a degree. What's the difference then at that point?
And then you'll be
Uh,
in there for a while too, right?
right. And
Yeah.
so it's like, what's the separation? But I feel like people that are looking for boot camps are usually looking for it to be efficient and, um, you know, getting it done in a timely manner without sacrificing the quality of the work that you're doing and what you're learning.
It's funny, over the years, it's like you hear coding boot camp and then it's just been diluted as a term so much, but it's literally called boot camp. And that's
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
Yeah.
comparison to
Actually,
a
that's
military boot
good to
camp.
think about.
Yeah, I mean, that you go into that to learn how to essentially be a soldier, right? And for a coding boot camp, you're doing the same thing. It should be that similar mentality of you're going in there to learn these necessary skills so you can get into the next phase. Now, the same thing with basic training for the military as well, is you're going into a period of like 8 weeks or so, or maybe a little bit longer, depending on the branch. And while you're in there, uh, you can go off and do more niche things. You have to go through basic, and then you're going to go more into your specialty as well too. I think if there's anybody in here that can say that, I think it's Krista, right? I think Krista has a military background, or she's part of a family with military. I could be wrong on that, Krista. It's just, but I think I remember you mentioning that. Um, I want to go through what Krista's mentioning with this question too. I picked Nucamp because it was affordable, and I watched uh, and saw Ludo in a campfire, and his energy just made it seem like a great place. He answered all my questions. He was great. Turned out Nucamp is so much more than just a boot camp. It is a family, but not the fight at Christmas. Uh, they want you to succeed and have I'm sure that says access, but like I think
Yeah.
it's success for life, right? The people are the best. Access for life. Okay, so like being able to come back into the community. I didn't know if that was a autocorrect to success.
No,
Either
I think
way,
she meant like the lifetime access to the boot
yep,
camps.
yep,
Yeah.
yep. You're definitely right on that. I was misreading that. Once again, I don't know why. I think I would have to restart, like refresh my screen for
Yeah.
my fonts to go bigger, but I didn't want to end the stream. But we actually are at the last minute. We're there. So I guess I'm going to have to do that anyway. Guys, thank you again for coming to Open House episode 87. This was Aleya's first time. She's amazing. If y'all ever want to talk to either one of us, schedule a call with us here, scan the QR code. The benefits of being able to do that, it's a more personal conversation on what you're trying to do, um, and us guide you towards a direction that makes sense for you. And sometimes, just being real, sometimes that's not Nucamp, okay? We genuinely are here to be people and help you on the right track. And we would love that to be here. And generally speaking, I think that is going to be the case most of the time. But we want to have a real conversation to help you down the line. So schedule a call, but also coupons, incentives, things like that too. There are a lot of programs on if you don't think you can afford it, if you don't have the time for it. There are a lot of things outside of New Camp that we've partnered up with to be able to help with that. Maybe we'll go more in depth with that on the next open house. That would be a great theme to talk about. The main obstacles in the way. But one last thing, Krista said that it's funny that you said it's diluted. So many are dumbing it down, telling people they can't be they can be a full stack developer in 12 weeks. I always say it took took a 12-month boot camp, so people know I went to a real deal. Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Krista. Don't get sold on a dream. You can't make $150,000 in 4 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
I would do that if I could. I think Aleya would do
Yeah.
that. I think everybody else would do that. Um, but anyway, guys, schedule a time with us here. Much love to all of y'all and take it easy.
Bye, guys. Thank you for having me.